You're listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Wepa! What up, man? This is your boy, Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders Podcast. And today, we have a treat for you. Got an amazing creator here. I mean, he's an actor, he's a producer, comic book writer, and he's creating a brand new world using a legendary horror icon. Let me introduce the legend in the making, Mr. Rich Davis. Wepa, what up,
What's up, Al? Hey,
What's
man,
up,
good to see
homie?
you.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I hope you are.
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah,
I can tell, man. You got the energy. I'm loving this already, man.
Yeah, we got to do it. Come on, man. You're using a horror icon, man. This guy has created Cult of Dracula from Source Point Press, and he's doing other things with this. And we're all going to learn all about this today. Before we do all that, let's really back just a bit, a tad, if you will. Tell us a bit about yourself, Rich. Where you from originally, and what was your first love of fandom?
Oh, wow. Those are great questions. Well, where I'm from is the easy one. I was born in a little town called Sparta, Tennessee. It's the dead middle of the state and the dead middle of nowhere. So yeah, it's right between Knoxville and Nashville. Grew up there, town of like 5,000 people. Had a heavy influence on writing, especially Cult of Dracula. Stephen King, and says if you want to do horror, write about what scares you. And then there's the old adage, write what you know. So my upbringing definitely influenced the aesthetic, that Southern Gothic appeal or feel to Cult of Dracula. So I'm very happy I grew up in that small town. Moved to Wilmington, North Carolina for college, lived there, decided I wanted to stay, didn't want to leave the beach. That's where I launched my my acting career, and I owned a theater there for 10 years.
Wait a minute. Look at this guy. He's doing all this. So, wow. What got you all interested even before you even got to those places? What was the spark that you said, I want to do things? Damn, you move places and opening theaters, becoming like, geez.
I've never been afraid to try something new, and I don't think anything's impossible. So hey, what's up, ASAP Imagination? And very glad you heard about it. But yeah, man, so my life's been a lot of things, but it's never been boring. I graduated college, I had $200 in my pocket, and I've said, you know what? I'm gonna own a theater. People looked at me like I was insane, but I took that $200 and I worked out a deal with a guy who owned a bar, and he had a tiny little stage. And I essentially rented that stage from him 3 weekends a month to perform plays. And so after that, I saved our nickels and dimes, shook the couch cushions, and eventually bought our own theater and started producing our own shows there. In 10 years, I'm very proud to say that we produced well over 100 full-length theatrical productions, founded a film festival, and did 52 episodes of a live weekly sitcom. So yeah, man, like the actors would come in, they'd get there at 6, the writers would hand them the script, they'd read it, they'd run through it once, and then boom, there was an audience right in front of them. So that was exciting.
Whoa. Crazy, bro.
Yeah. So your other question, my first love, first fandom love. It's tough because I want to just take the easy route and just say horror, because I've loved horror since I was a little bitty kid. But I'd say that my first real fandom love would be Marvel Comics, specifically the X-Men. I was a huge X-Men fan as a kid. For whatever reason, that story just always resonated with me. So and the Sentinels were just amazingly cool. These giant building-sized robots, man. I was like, how could a kid not love that, right?
I mean, oh yeah. Well, I'm a robot fan. I started with Master Disease, so
there we go, man. Yeah, and throw in a couple of kaiju, and we got ourselves a movie here, man.
Hell yeah, son. I love that. So that's awesome. Okay, X-Men. A lot of people. Was it comic book form X-Men or animated X-Men?
It was comic books first. Well, actually, it was role playing game first.
Role playing.
My
Oh shit! Wait a
Yeah.
minute. This is the first person that ever said guys play for the role playing game. Hold up. What game and when? What was this?
So it was that. Excuse me. Got a little cough here. That Marvel, it was the Marvel superheroes role playing game. I have no idea who made it, but my friend down the street lived a couple houses down. His brother was a little bit older, and he was big into D and all that. And so he had this Marvel superheroes role playing game, and we started playing it. And the first little mission that you have on there is you're with Scott Summers and Jean Grey, and you're a new mutant. You're trapped on a train, and the Sentinels are coming. So you got to figure out what to do. And from there on, I was like, oh my God, who are these characters? What are these powers? And
Yeah.
so, and I started reading the comics, and then of course X-Men the animated series, and from there,
Oh,
just boom, man, X-Men.
did you have?
You
Did
know,
you easily have access to comics growing up in your area?
well, yes and no. So the little town I lived in, Sparta, did not have a comic book store,
I can't hear the
but
Sparta without saying, Sparta.
this is Sparta. Yeah, we do that at every football and basketball
I'm
game too.
sure.
Yeah. um, so yeah, but the next town over, Cookeville, which is where Tennessee Tech University is, they had one comic book store called Bob's Collector's Den, and my parents were very very clever human beings, because when I was little, I really didn't like to read. The only thing I wanted to do was play baseball and play video games, and I was pretty decent at both. Went to college on a baseball scholarship.
Oh,
So
word. Look at this guy. He was almost a baseball player, major
yeah,
leaguer here. What's going on
yeah.
here?
There was a time I thought I was going, and then I got to college, and I feel like, oh wow, these are what real baseball players are. And I was like, I'm not good enough to be here. But so yeah, so Bob's Collector's Den was in Cookeville, and so my mom and dad, they tricked me. There's like, okay, if you do well in school, or if you do well in your baseball game, whatever, we'll take you this weekend. We'll take you over to Bob's and let you buy comics. Well, my little kid brain didn't realize that reading comic books was reading.
Reading.
Yeah, so I loved it. I ate it up, man. And I guess I came into it at the right time. Like right around the early to mid '90s. And so there were like a
Mhm.
million X-Men books out there, and they were all incredible to me. And so I
Oh,
started
wow.
reading that, and then I graduated to novels, and now that made me into an avid reader. Not only comics, but I just love to read. I love to read the newspaper. It's just there's something about reading and processing those words that just resonates with me. So it's a passion, and all because my parents tricked me.
Don't you love it? Parents' evil trickeries have
Hmm.
gave you a lifelong passion. All
Absolutely,
right.
evil geniuses.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Masterminds indeed. So
Hmm.
go okay, so you did a theater, you're saying you did all
Hmm.
this stuff and whatnot now. So where does comic books come back into your life where you want to create something? Or was
Yeah,
that always the intention to be a comic though?
no,
Maybe a novel first?
never really even
No?
imagined either. Honestly, I was very insecure about my writing, until a couple of years ago, and now I'm just insecure about it. I went from very insecure to insecure. I'm hoping to graduate to kinda insecure. So we're step by step, right? So I was pursuing a career, as an actor. I did tons of music videos and commercials, and living in Wilmington with the film studio there. I mean, I essentially put myself through college doing extra work and PA work, because
Oh wow.
it was, I mean, you could go and, you get work a day or two and make a couple $100, just standing around on a movie set, or you could go, wait tables. And I didn't want to wait
Movie
tables.
set, please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amen. So I did a ton of that, and then I graduated into owning the theater. And in 2013, I wrote, a stage play called Dracula Reimagined, and I did it kind of on a dare, because I was having lunch with a buddy of mine who was also a director, and he was directing a stage play of Dracula, and he had a beautiful set, had a great cast, everything, but he hated the script. And he was saying, there's just no such thing as a good Dracula play, because the things that people found frightening in the Victorian era are not scary anymore, because we've seen them done over and over again. We've seen Leslie Nielsen spoof them. It's Count Chocula is
Wait,
more visible
are you
than Count
saying that
Dracula.
Leslie Nielsen is the reason Dracula has jumped over the shark?
Probably, yeah. It was probably Mel Brooks and Leslie Nielsen that did it. And so I wrote the play because I told Rob, I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a good Dracula stage play. And he knew if I say I'm going to do something, it gets done. So I went and I wrote the play. We produced it on stage for an entire month in 2013. It was nominated for several North Carolina Theater Awards. Won a
What?
few. Yeah, won a few of them.
Oh,
And from
there, look at
there,
this.
yeah, and
I
from
love it.
there, I decided I wanted to do a screenplay. Tony Todd was happened to be in the audience, saw it one day and told me, he's like, Rich, you don't need to let this go. You need to do something with it. So I started thinking, okay, we'll do a
Did you
screenplay.
know he was there
I did
in the
not know
event?
he was going to be there, but I knew
Ah,
about 15 minutes in, when you see this giant of a man come in and take up a theater
like,
seat, and you're like,
that's
holy
a
shit.
legend, bro.
Yeah, man, I knew who that was. And he and I have become friends.
Oh, that's
And
wonderful.
yeah, and so he's actually going to be involved in the film adaptation of Cult of Dracula.
Oh, what?
So yeah,
Oh,
so
we're gonna get
we
into that, folks. Hey, look at this guy dropping these
yeah.
cheeses. Woo-hoo-hoo.
It's like,
Yeah,
where
that's
do you want to
awesome
go
news.
first, man? There's so many different avenues,
Oh,
and
we are.
it all comes down to just not giving up on something that you want to do. It's like,
Absolutely.
I could have, I could have just written the stage play, and it could have gone for 3 weeks in North Carolina and then disappeared into ether. But I didn't. I stuck with it. And when we after the play, and I wanted to adapt it into a screenplay, we were looking at producing, like a $250,000 film, which is, basically a micro budget for making a movie.
Hmm.
Uh, and Unfortunately, my wife became ill with chronic kidney disease, and she
Oh, I'm
ultimately
sorry.
passed away in 2020.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, my condolences. So sorry.
thank you very much. So we had to derail the film idea, because it was didn't have the time, the resources, or the energy to put into making a movie while she was sick. So she didn't want me to let go of it, and she said, okay, I get it, maybe we don't do a film, because we understand how much that costs and how much time it takes, but why don't you try turning it into a comic book? And it had never occurred to me before, but writing a comic book script is very similar to writing a screenplay. So it was pretty easy for me to take what I'd already written and to convert it into the comic book format. And luckily, throughout my insane life, I have managed to meet a lot of really cool people from a lot of really cool industries. And Georges Genti does Buffy the Vampire Slayer, is doing Mandalorian right now for
Mm.
Marvel. Brilliant artist. And I just reached out to him and I was like, look, here's what I want to do. Can you guide me? And thankfully, he was very kind and generous with his time. And he ultimately introduced me to Henry Martinez, who was the artist on the first 3 issues of Cult of Dracula. Um, Being 2020 and everything it was, of course, COVID affected us, and Henry
Yeah.
had to drop out of the project. He got sick with COVID and couldn't continue. And so we picked up Puis Calzada, and he took it from issue 3 on through 6, and also came back and did the art on Rise of Dracula. And he'll be back. We're getting the band back together for Reign of Dracula, which will be out next year from Source Point Press.
Oof.
So,
Oof.
so
Look at this
yeah,
guy. He does not
yeah.
stop. He does not
Mm-mm.
stop. All right. So start talking about this. So keep us just some insight. What is Cult of Dracula before we get into that exciting news?
Yeah, so Cult of Dracula is a reimagining of Bram Stoker's original tale set within a Manson family inspired cult. So took two of the things that have terrified me my entire life, vampires and Charles Manson, and mushed them together into this story. And it starts very small, very Toby Hooper, Southern Gothic, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, small group, this documentary film crew, Abraham Van Helsing, Mina Murray, and Jonathan Harker. They show up at this compound to interview Robert Renfield. He's like the enigmatic leader of this cult called the Ordo Dracul, and they are sworn to worship an ancient blood goddess. And so Renfield is kind of the Manson guy. He's the guy that's on TV. But we find out as we go through the story is the cult serves this ancient blood goddess. Vampires are real, and the story just unfolds from there. And so we get to go. What I wanted to do with it, long way of getting around to this point. What I wanted to do with the book is I wanted to expand vampire mythology. I wanted to add something to the way we interpret vampires. I did not want to just tell another story about a white Eastern European dude with a widow's peak and a tuxedo moving into Victorian London and buying up all the property. There's nothing I could do with that story. It's been told so many times and so well. I would just be taking from what others have created if I went that route. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to add something. Call me crazy or arrogant. I'm probably both, but I wanted to make my mark on the Dracula mythology. So I started looking at not only vampire mythology from the Western perspective, but also a global and historical perspective, because vampires do not exclusively belong to Western culture. They exist in almost every culture of any human being that has ever walked the face of the earth. There's something about this myth that is just primordial. So, I mean, you have the Cherokee Nation, they have the Deer Woman. You go to Japan, they have Jorogumo. You go to ancient Greece and really look at the origin of Medusa. You can look at Horus from the Egyptian perspective, Kali from India, the Aswang from the Philippines. All of these vampire mythologies exist, and unfortunately they're really not covered that much, because we just go to the Western concept, Dracula. So what I decided, what if all of those figures throughout all of human history were Dracula, but they were interpreted differently by the people that observed her based on their cultural perspective and their time of existence. So the Cherokee, they saw the Deer Woman. In South America, they saw La Llorona. So all of these myths could come together, and suddenly I had not only Bram Stoker's work to draw from, and not only the Western idea of vampires to draw from, but I could pull from any time and any place throughout human history and weave it into this tapestry. So by expanding that mythology, I think that I have offered something out there that could potentially add to the way Dracula is interpreted and the way we see that. Because I wanted to take all of the themes, everything Stoker wanted to say, it's all there. It's all in the book. The fear of the other, the criticism of hypocrisy towards sexuality. All of that is in the book. It's just packaged in a different way that expands the base of the myth. So it's been very successful. The comic was a top 50 best-selling book of 2021. Yes, sir. I was very proud of that. We were number 50, but hey, it still counts.
Hey, to get ranked like that, still,
yeah,
first,
man.
your first project out. Why not?
Yeah, I mean nobody in the world ever expected this book to blow up the way it did. I mean, myself included. I mean, I was convinced, I'm gonna sell 5 copies, and my mom's gonna.
How
buy
did you even find the publisher to come out with it, though? What was that process like for you?
You want to do this for like another hour? No. So again, nothing in my life ever is a straight line. Okay, it's always this meandering, fun story. You're going on one mission. Oh, side quest. And then you're like, where was I going? So I started out. I heavily considered doing the Kickstarter route, but decided I wanted my book to be in comic book stores. For some reason, that was just a point of pride for me. So I started, I hired my artist, I hired my colorist, I hired my letterer, I hired cover artists, and I created issue 1 of my book. And, I set it in my mind going in that I was going to make a professional quality book. So I hired pros. My artist, my letterer, my colorist, they had all worked and were working in the comic book industry. So, I took and made a professional product. I paid to have it printed up, and ready to go in a nice real format. And I took it to cons and I started going up to the heads of different publishers, and I would ask them, it's like, hey, I understand you're busy. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Can I talk to you while you're walking to your next panel? Whatever. And I was amazed to find out how welcoming and open-minded these people were. I mean, they didn't know me from Adam. I was just some dude wandering off the street. They had no reason to give me the time of day, but they did, man. They sat down and, and I talked with them, and it took, it was probably 2 years of, hitting people up at different conventions and getting to know them. And so finally we got to the point where the book was finished. We were ready to go. And, it took a lot of risk, because they could have all said no, and I'd just be stuck with all these copies and lost. But we got to a point in 2019 where we had 4 publishers. We had our choice of 4 publishers that we could have gone with, and they were all recognizable companies. And then 2020 happened, and all of a sudden it went from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 to, oh, fuck, we got nobody. So at that point, we were going to go the Kickstarter route. And literally the day we started setting up the Kickstarter, I got an email from Second Sight Publishing. They were a brand new company. They'd never done anything. Cult of Dracula was literally their first book. And so, but they wanted to publish it. And so I canceled the Kickstarter, went over to Second Sight, and sold so many copies with the first issue that they could not afford to print issue 2. Wow. So yeah, I mean, that book came out and sold like 15,000 copies. It was a book from nobody had ever heard of me, a publisher nobody had ever heard of. And there's just no reason to buy this book, but they did. And so, Second Sight, no fault of their own, they did everything they could. But again, new company, first book, they didn't have the infrastructure set up. They were not prepared to handle this. They were expecting maybe this guy sells 5 copies and his mom buys 3 of them, but we come in with all this, and so Second Sight was very kind, and they connected me to SourcePoint Press, and SourcePoint took it from there. They reissued issue 1, and then they went out and, of course, published all the rest, and then my next book as well. So here we are. It was a really wild experience, as is everything in my life for some reason.
Well, but it makes it interesting, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And you definitely learn a lot.
My life. Oh yeah. I mean, you learn about, the ins and outs of the comic industry, and, it's amazing. This industry, as big as it is still so very, very small, and people know one another. And one of the things that I've really loved that I've discovered about the comic book industry is just how welcoming and open and supportive it is. I mean, now there are some jerks out there, of course, there's always
as within any type of community.
With anything, there's always jerks, but the comic book industry seems to be filled with people who want other people to succeed. At least that's been my experience. I had some really cool artists help me and talk to me and walk me through this and work with me when they had no reason to. And so that's why if somebody ever comes up to me at a convention, or if somebody DMs me on social, I always respond with the mindset, how can I help you? Because somebody helped me. I want to be that for you. And that's been my experience in this industry, as far as how people, how supportive it can be. So the journey's been wild. It's been long. It's been scary. It's been hard, but I wouldn't change a thing about it. And I'm really happy where I'm at. So hopefully they're going to let me keep doing this for a minute.
Oh, man. Oh, apparently they are, because we're going to get into the next project in a moment. Before we jump into that one, you told me right prior, I was showing you something. You said, no, you got to change that to World of Dracula. What is this? What's going on? What's the World of Dracula?
So that's a change we recently made, like literally 2 days ago. So I originally envisioned my Dracula saga to be, the way I pitched it to SourcePoint and other publishers was, it's either got to be 1 volume of 6 issues, or it's got to be 3 volumes of 6 issues. It can't be 2, it can't be 4, and no, it can't be 0 because then I don't get paid. So, but as I wrote it and I started creating these characters, and as we expanded the mythology to include the Dracula from different cultures, I started thinking, well, maybe there could be more than 3. And so I started thinking about how I might do that and how we might. So we're going to pull in essentially each one of those Dracula from different cultures are going to get their own one shot. So we'll get to tell a story about the Deer Woman. We'll tell a story about Vlad the Impaler. We'll tell a story about Medusa. And so that could be a very cool ongoing thing. And then we decided that wasn't good enough to expand it. So in Rise of Dracula issue 3, I introduce Victor Frankenstein. And
Oh,
at
damn.
the yeah, so at the time I thought, okay, this is going to be a cool little side plot, and Victor will be dead at the end, and nothing will matter. It doesn't matter. But then I started thinking, wow, I really like what I'm doing with Victor here. It made him, he's kind of he's an atomic scientist, nuclear physicist, essentially, that's been captured by the Ordo or excuse me, the Templars, and they're making him work on a project that we don't fully understand yet. So I was like, wow, I could tell a really cool story about Frankenstein, and I've already introduced him here. So if I tie those together, suddenly my Dracula universe just got a little bit bigger because we're bringing in Frankenstein and the creature. And so I was thinking to myself, well, if I'm going to do that, why don't I just jump in? Why don't I do these Victorian horror icons? And so I came up with with concepts for the creature from the Black Lagoon and for Dorian Gray. And so each one of those series now, they are going to have their own series, and it's all tying in. It's all based on this world of Dracula that we've created. So that's why the shift from Cult of Dracula to World of Dracula, because now we need to encompass more than just the one book, because we're essentially, as someone put it, I'm going to try to do what Universal did but failed to do. So I'm going to make that Victorian horror universe and hopefully do it well.
I think you're on the right track, homie. It sounds like it. You got me like, all right, I gotta hit up my shop and make sure they get in Source Point first of all, so I can get all of this pulled immediately.
Heck yeah.
All right.
There we go.
And
This is the new one.
look at that. What? Look at that. Prometheus in
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, look at that art. Holy, something that Hellraiser, I mean himself, Pinhead would be proud of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of Clive Barker Hellraiser influence, not only in that cover but in Prometheus in Chains. So Prometheus in Chains is a play on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, set in the post World War II atomic age. So both Victor and Elizabeth, this is based off a true story as well. They're among the Jewish scientists that fled Germany as the Nazis were rising, came to America, worked on the Manhattan Project and other projects for the military as well. But the Manhattan Project being the most prominent, helped develop the bomb and ultimately helped to bring down the Reich. So it's what happens. Victor, so in the process of sorry, I was getting a little emotional because this is where the book gets kind of real for me. It's kind of a little play on a true story. So while working on the bomb, Elizabeth, Victor's wife, also a scientist, radiation exposure causes her to develop cancer, and she ultimately dies. And Victor is tossed into the deepest, darkest depths of depression. And there he becomes obsessed with bringing her back. And so this is where the idea of Prometheus comes in, stealing fire from the gods, stealing the ability to create life, to have a soul, stealing a soul from the gods. Victor becomes obsessed with that. So where my take on Frankenstein differs from the traditional take is, rather than an external exploration of the character focusing on the balance between his genius and his madness, which that's traditionally the way we see Frankenstein, mad scientist, genius, arrogant. And then this is the punishment. The creature is his punishment for being arrogant and daring to try to steal that fire.
Be God, yeah.
So instead of going external, I went internal. And so the book focuses entirely on Victor's struggle with his guilt, his grief, and his PTSD. I'm also a person who lives with PTSD related to my wife's passing. It was a very traumatic event. And so writing Prometheus in Chains it's been very difficult. Without hyperbole, it's been hell.
Yeah.
I have literally, when I'm writing this book, I have finished scenes and turned around and vomited into a trash can next to my desk because it's that emotionally taxing. My therapist is making a lot of money off me because I'm writing this book. So it's been interesting. But it's also been cathartic. As I'm writing this book, I'm confronting these things. I'm staring that demon right in the eyes, and I'm hoping that other people who read it, I mean, it's not like it's not an after school special. It's not it's not one of those. It's not that episode of Saved by the Bell where Jesse gets addicted to pain pills. It's just. But I'm hoping, because there are a lot of people out there, men especially, who suffer from mental illness, from depression, from PTSD, and as men, we're often taught to bottle that up, be tough.
Yeah.
You can't feel that. Men don't have feeling. Boys don't cry. Well, fuck that, man. We do. We do.
We
suffer.
feel. Yeah,
We
bro.
do.
Amen, bro. It's the absolute truth.
And that's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay not to be okay. And so I'm hoping that people who struggle with PTSD, maybe they see something of themselves reflected in the book, and maybe one person out there, if it stops one guy from pulling that trigger, just one, it's worth it. And I'm hoping that some good comes of this, but I'm also very proud of the story from an entertainment point of view. It's been very well received by the advanced readers we've sent it to. Reviewers, you're gonna see a lot of reviews start coming out. Go Collect, for example, is about to name it. They're coming out with an article naming it one of the top 10 most anticipated horror comics of 2023. So it's really getting really, really good advanced press. Brought Jordan Dorenzo in to do pencils and inks on this. Kept the rest of the creative team together. Alex Zeef is doing
Okay.
colors.
Hold on here, though. You changed the artist, right? So
Yeah, different series, so different artists. Yeah.
understood, but how did you gauge the artistry here, being that it's such an emotional story? I'm pretty sure that the art has to kind of match the emotion you were feeling, since you are
Yes.
tossing a bit of yourself in it,
Yes, absolutely. And so for the artist here, and Jordan Dorenzo has been a friend of mine for years. He was actually the artist I intended to hire to do Cult of Dracula. He had just come out of SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. He was one of Tom Lyle's students. Tom, Scarlet Spider, Batman, Spider-Man, all that. Great artist. But Tom, when he introduced me to Jordan, said, "This is the most promising student I've ever taught." And I 100% agree with him. Things didn't work out in the beginning with Jordan, just because he was fresh, and publishers were telling me I need an artist with a name. So that's why we went with Henry Martinez. But Jordan and I became very, very good friends. We talked a lot. We hooked up at conventions, hung out and all that stuff. So when it came time for Prometheus, I was like, Jordan, I really like working with you. You know what's going on. We're drift compatible. So throwing a kaiju reference there.
Yeah, I know. I love that particular movie. I love that movie.
Me too. Oh man. So yeah, that's how it all ended up. And Jordan's art has been able, when a creative team is in that synergy, when we're in the drift, so to speak, magic happens. And it's just amazing to me to see how Jordan and I, we do connect on that level, and he can see the pictures that I'm describing sometimes before I even complete my thought.
Oh,
And so
great.
it's amazing. It's just like, and because of that relationship, it makes my job of writing a script easier because, like, for example, this may or may not, it absolutely is in the book, but in the script, I just wrote this whole page was, I was like, interior Victor's apartment, or Victor's loft, 6 panels, a bug doing bug stuff. And so I just wrote a bug doing bug stuff. And somehow Jordan knew what I meant and drew the page exactly as I had envisioned it based off of that one little sentence of a
Amazing.
bug doing bug stuff.
Amazing. I
Yeah, and
love
that
it.
just that can't happen if you don't have that synergy with your artist. If you're not if the writer and the artist aren't vibing, you can tell. Because the work suffers.
Oh, yep. That's the only thing that actually suffers. You see it
Hmm.
through the work.
Yep.
It's really true. And again, look at this bad boy, folks. Look at that gorgeous cover. When does this baby drop?
So that cover, by the way, is by Les Lyndon Garner. Highly recommend you check him out. Brilliant artist. He's doing all the covers for Prometheus and Chains. But Prometheus and Chains, we're very proud to say, comes out from Red 5 Comics on Free Comic Book Day of 2023. So
Ooh.
May 3rd. Yes, there's Red 5. Great company. Really happy to be working with them. And really, really excited to see what this book will do. But yeah, it's out on Free Comic Book Day. So honestly, I can't think of a better day to launch a book
Mm.
day because you're going to have all those people at the comic book store looking for something. You're going to have new readers, old readers, everything in between. So yeah, I'm super stoked to get it out there on Free Comic Book Day, and I'm waiting very, very patiently and excitedly to see which amazing comic book shop's going to bring me out on Free Comic Book Day to sign this bad boy.
Yay! It's gonna happen. Don't you worry. We're gonna get to
Oh
see
yeah,
you. So,
I threw it out there in case any of your people watching here are comic book shop owners. So yeah.
hint,
But
hint.
I hint, yeah, and I love doing the store signings. I mean, I've done in the past 2 years, I've done close to 50 conventions and store signings. So
Hey,
I'm hitting the streets out there every weekend. The hustle, like we talked about before,
keep
man. It's
on the
it's
pavement,
all I
baby.
know. All I know. I'm MC Hammer selling those tapes out of the trunk of my car, man.
Hey, over here, Pop. Yo, check these out. I love it.
Yep, yep.
That's how you got to do it. You're old school, baby. That's the way to do
Yeah,
it.
you
That's
gotta you
listen.
hustle,
You have
man.
to be your own number one fan and hustle.
Yep.
Exactly. So,
Yes, you do.
talking about conventions, what's your next one? Where can we see you anytime soon?
So I'm actually going to Queens this weekend for a 1 day convention up there.
The
So if you guys are in the
Cosmic
New York area,
Con.
Cosmic Con, yeah, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, I just heard about this yesterday too. I said, hey,
Yeah.
maybe I'll see you there. I'm considering.
Yeah, man, please come, dude. I'm gonna be there. I think this is the first time they're doing this con. So I met the people who organize it when I was a guest at Big Apple Comic Con. I'll be back at Big Apple in March, I
You
think.
were at Big
Uh,
Apple, the one that just
yeah,
passed.
yeah,
Damn,
the Christmas show.
how did I not see you? I
I
was
don't know.
there.
I may have had my invisibility cloak on. Like you can't see me.
All right, I'm gonna be. Yeah, next time I'm going there too. I was by Blind Adam's table.
Oh,
He
okay,
hooked,
right
he,
on.
he hooked
Yeah,
me. He hooked me up with a pass, and then next thing you know, he put me to work to film 2 interviews
of
for him.
course. Okay, yeah. I interviewed. There was somebody doing a documentary. I interviewed with them. I don't remember what their names were, but
Oh,
um,
cool.
but that yeah, that was cool. So yeah, I'm doing that. I think I'm doing one in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. Is it Pennsylvania or Virginia? Wherever Happy Valley is. I think I'm
Happy
doing
Valley
that.
sounds like a place where 420 friendly, right?
Word. Yeah, you know what? If they're not, they should be.
you
And
know,
then after that, the big cons start. I'm doing Heroes Con, MegaCon, Dragon Con, New York Comic Con, doing several of the Fan Expo shows.
what's
So I
up?
think so Dallas, Miami, Baltimore. I think. I mean, I'm doing a ton of conventions this year. Just because I love it, and two, I love meeting the people. I get to introduce so many people to my book at these conventions, and I've gained so many friends and support. I really do look at my readers as my friends because I just can't get around to calling them fans because that seems weird to me.
Right?
To imagine that I have fans, that just sounds arrogant. So I'm like,
You
yeah,
say
my
fans, you're thinking about the ones that you turn on. Here we go.
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, no, I'm like, my friends who read my comic. That's the way I like to look at it. So, I've made a lot of good friends doing conventions, and I don't intend to slow down anytime soon.
Well, then let me tell you, as a fan to a creator, thank you, brother. Thank you for being so daring to create, put yourself out there, especially just hearing what you've gone through and with this Prometheus really sharing. That takes a lot of courage. So thank you for
Thank you.
doing that. A lot of people are going through things. So yeah, and thank you for talking about that as well. I appreciate you as a fan. So God bless on this journey, bro. You got this. I can't wait to see all of this on big screens and small screens and whatnot.
Yes, sir.
You know, so
Yes, sir.
what's popping with them screens? Though? I mean, for real, with the
All
what
right.
what's going on here, man? Because I
So
want to see this.
yeah, actually, you know what's going? You're the first podcast that I've done since we closed the deal. So I guess you're kind of breaking this news in the podcast
Woo!
world.
Breaking news,
So
people. Wepa.
just a couple days ago, we finalized the deal with BR Films to develop Cult of Dracula into a 90-minute feature film. And they have sent it into immediate development, which is fantastic. The book was optioned by Sure Pictures literally the day issue one dropped.
What?
Yeah, that we signed the option, and
Whoa.
and so because advanced sales were so good and the reviews were great, and just lightning in a bottle. So Sure Pictures, they did their thing and facilitated the deal with BR Films, and now we are in development right now. We have we have letters of intent coming from some actors that are very recognizable names. Tony Todd, I can say, is there's a mutual interest between us in him being involved in the project.
Oh,
That's just a
please.
fancy way of saying he's on board as long as we can come up with the money.
Of
Um,
course.
and so yeah, it's going to be really cool. I'm really not going to have a lot of involvement with the development of the film, because that's just the way it works. You hand it off
Of
to the
course.
production team. I will be, a creative consultant. I will have final say on the creative aspects, and I'll be in the writers' room, but I will not be the writer of the
Good.
script. I won't be the showrunner or whatever. So, but BR Films, the company I chose to work with. I think they're fantastic. They've got several movies out on streaming services. Dope Boy Magic is probably their biggest movie.
Okay.
It's on, I think that one's on Peacock. Then they've got Monogamish, which was also on Peacock. They've done Hallmark movies, things like that. But they're a very good, hungry film company with some really cool, hungry people working for them. And so, yeah, I had choices on who I wanted to work with, and I chose them. And I think I'm anticipating it being a very good decision.
I cannot wait. This is amazing, man. Look at that. So from something that started as a play
Hmm.
about to hit a big screen one
Yep.
day. So this is a
I mean, yeah,
beautiful
it's going
thing,
to be,
bro.
I'm excited. I mean, really am. And, speaking with BR, the things that we're talking about, and really and truly the thing that made my decision for me was when we were talking and we were talking about special effects, because we are dealing with vampires, and, there's got to be blood, there's got to be gore, there's got to be special effects. And, we were talking, I was like, look, I would really love to go practical special effects,
Oh,
like,
please. Oh,
yes.
thank you.
and
Hallelujah.
and they were on board. They were in the same way. And before I even got it out of my mouth, because I was actually thinking, I was like, I want to do practical special effects, and so that probably means we're going to have to cut the special effects scenes down because of the budget. And Marquand, who is he's the executive producer at BR Films, he was like, look, I got you. We've got this guy. They did a film, I think it's called The Last Call, which is also a horror movie, and special effects guy. And we started talking to him, and we just clicked. We were talking about the same things, Tom Savini and all that, those horror
Yeah,
movie
man.
cowboy stuff, and so
Hell
that's the direction we're going to go. And in order to do that, BR Films, what they're going to have to do very carefully is be judicious about when we use the special effects, because again, it's a film, it's going to be very expensive. So hopefully that means that when we use the blood and gore, it's going to be very effective in the film.
An impactful moment. Because again,
Yes.
that's the thing I don't like about the modern horror. It's just a gore fest, a gore
It's gore
party.
porn. Yeah, it's
So
gore
it's
porn.
like, yeah, it's not fun. Nothing, you just start laughing and all this. There's no impact in deaths.
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? But I will give credit to Megan. I don't know if you saw Megan.
I have
Well
not.
done.
It's on my list. I
Well
can't
done,
wait.
bro.
Yes.
As a horror fan, I love me horror, bro. I'm
Mhm.
old boy school. My first horror movie was Hell Night with Linda Blair in the movie
Oh,
theater.
heck
My parents
yeah.
took me to.
Great movie.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
So, I'm telling you, this jam right here, what a fun, cool movie. Well done. Well done. I appreciate it a lot. All right. Thank you. There's some
Yeah.
hope yet for this young horror generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Also,
All
us
right.
old school people, man. We'll bring it back.
Awesome, brother. And with that, thank you so much, Rich, for hanging out, bro. You rock, yo. You're amazing. Folks, I'm gonna put this up again. Follow him on Instagram and Facebook, World of Dracula. All right. Stay in check and in tune with everything that's popping. You heard it. Of course, you can pick up the books of the Cult from Source Point Press. Go visit LCS. And that new joint that's dropping right there is from Red 5 Comics. Again, let me show off that beautiful cover. This is going to be an amazing book, Prometheus in Chains. All right, so make sure to check it out from Red 5.
Yes, sir.
All
Go
right.
to your local comic book shop and ask them now to pre-order it because it's going to be hot.
It will be hot. As a matter of fact, thank you for the reminder because as soon as we're done, I'm going to Facebook mine real quick. Please add, all right? And you guys better also do the same. And of course, as usual, you know what it is. Check out my extended family. Everything we do at comiccrusaders.shop, undercovercapes.com. We got shows dropping all week. Definitive Crusade, Outside the Panels, Old Timers Comic Book Show. We got it all. Drunken Chat. Yeah, nah, wepa. That's right, baby. We do it. We do it. Thank again, Richard. Thank you, my fellow Crusaders. You know what it is. Hasta la próxima. Wepa! Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.com and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.